everybody, this is Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. This video is about grid down. What do you do? But first off, I want to start off with kind of how I prep. Oh, and my lab down here, you'll see her, my fearsome guard dog, just got a bath. We got to take her to the vet later for some flea meds. Normally we don't have an issue with that here, but sometimes, some years, we just get lots of fleas. But anyway, yeah, grid down, what do you do? First off, we prepare, my family and I prepare with the idea that the grid isn't going to exist in an SHTF-WRL scenario. So that's what I suggest doing first off. Is same with vehicles. I talked about this in other videos. How I don't count on having vehicles, and I don't count on having the grid. If I do, great, bonus. But if you prepare to not have the grid, then you'll be much better equipped to deal with the grid going down. I also just did a video, I think it was on Patreon, about off-grid. Do you need to be off-grid? You know, that has definitely some benefits. Solar, wind power, whatever, self-sufficient, self-reliant is always a good thing. But say the grid goes down, what are you going to do? Well, depending, and I'm talking about just the grid going down, not other factors like roving bands of, people killing people, stuff like that. Just the grid factor, like normal everyday life, grid goes down. What do you do? Well, immediate reaction probably won't be anything other than make sure that you don't eat out of your pantry or your food storage. Eat what's in the refrigerator first, of course. This is all common sense stuff. You guys probably already know this, but we'll just talk about it a little bit. So, yes, eat what is in your refrigerator first, because that will go bad first. Then start working on your freezers. If you have a deep freezer, like we have those, the big, huge chest types, we have a couple of those. So those will stay frozen for quite a while, especially if they're big items, and you got, maybe other ice in there, just stuff like that. So those will stay frozen for quite a while. I don't know exactly how. I've never tried it because I don't want to waste all my food. But fridge first, freezer second. Then what else? Grid goes down, and I'm thinking, let's talk about it. Civil unrest, and maybe there's attack on the power grid. We'll use that as a scenario, because there's different ways. Also, power grid could go down from an EMP, which means you probably won't have cell phone service. But say the power grid just goes down due to somebody, somehow power grid went down. Communication methods for your team, your mag, your tribe. That's really important. Check your stuff. Basically, if power goes out, the first thing I always do is I look at my cell phone. If I have cell service and my cell phone works, I'll just double check, make sure the car starts, something like that. Because you want to verify whether it's just the power grid down or if it's an EMP. Because it's vital information here, because an EMP could be a way bigger situation. Just a second. That was my lab freaking about a squirrel coming up on the porch where she is to get some squirrel food. Like I said, she's a big badass. Anyway, an EMP, there can be a lot more implications, way more implications, because if the grid is down, you probably won't have, you might have cell service, you might not, you probably won't, but landlines, hardwired landlines will still work, not wireless phones, cordless phones, but there's some things to think about. Also, other immediate actions. Just the grid going down, like I said, there's not really any immediate actions. Break out the candles. If it's wintertime, start at the wood stove if you have one. Alternate heating methods, I guess, or alternate cooling methods. If it's hot out, maybe you're going to want to open up all your windows, which may or may not help, but hey, maybe there's a little bit of breeze. Maybe it'll help a little bit. If it's cold out, then, you got different kinds of heating system. You got wood heat. If you have a gas range top, you can put your cast iron pans, which I hope you have because cast iron rocks, on there and use that as kind of a radiant heat source. I know it's not the best, but there's other heaters, propane heaters, kerosene heaters, all different things like that. And some are safe for indoors, some are not safe for indoors. That's why I talk about in my Planet Prep of the Day video also, blankets. Have lots of extra blankets. So yeah, grid down, what things you're going to lose? You're going to lose your Netflix. Probably going to lose your YouTube and your cell phone, stuff like that. But as far as eating, and also, okay, yeah, we already talked about the eating part. Sorry, my brain just... If it's an EMP, I would highly suggest increased security measures. Even maybe grid down. Take a look at your security measures. Take a look at what's going on around you. That's one of the big things. Head on a swivel. How are people reacting to this? Power goes out. I mean, that's just a normal part of life, depending on where you live, how often it goes out. So it's not that much of a concern if it's short term. If it's a long term event, or if you're in the city water. What about your septic or your sewage? I'm sorry, I have a septic, so I don't worry about it. But what if you're on, city sewage? The pumps won't work if it's an EMP type thing or grid down. Backup generators will work in some places. Also, if you have backup cell phones, backup ham radios, FRS, GMRS, CB, stuff like that. If you have them in a Faraday cage, an EMP, they'll be fine. If it's not an EMP, just a grid down, they're going to work anyway. So communications are important. You got to be able to contact your group. And then analyze the situation. It's a fluid situation. I can't sit here and tell you what exactly you need to do in a grid down situation, because it depends on how you got to grid down. It depends on what the socioeconomic area is and the threats around you in your specific area. Basically, we should always be gathering as much intel as possible. We should always be head on the swivel, analyzing, gathering information, checking out what's around us, and making decisions based off that. So just be aware of that. The biggest thing is just food, what you use first, what you don't use first. You guys all know that, though. And heat or cooling for the weather. And depending on your area, you probably know more about that than I do, based off of your needs. So, yeah, grid down. It's better to be off-grid, of course. Self-reliant, self-sufficient. If you're not reliant on the grid and the way you live your life, your everyday life, it won't affect you that much. Have ways to cook also that are not reliant on the power, your power source. You can get little Coleman stoves. It's super simple. You can make if you have a yard, you can make a fire pit in the yard. There's lots of different ways to go about it. Wood stove, you can cook on top of the wood stove. If you have a fireplace, you can rig up something inside the fireplace to cook on. But yeah, so those are just some thoughts. It's not a, oh gosh, the world is falling video and getting millions of views and all stuff like that, because this is one of those things that, we just need to think about. We need to be aware of. We need to war game. A lot of these scenarios I talk about in my videos because I can't tell you what to do, because we're all in different areas. We all make different amounts of money. We're all different ages. We all have different physical capabilities. We all have different mental capabilities. We live in different areas. Rural, urban, suburban, just all these different things. Apartments, houses, ranches, homesteads. They're all different. So I can't sit here and tell you what to do. I just try to get you guys to think and to use your brains. Prep a little every day and prep at a peace of mind out of fear. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, and blessings to you and yours.